Zu mir auf die Bühne darf ich jetzt bitten Herrn Professor Magister Christian Maurer. Ich freue mich ganz besonders, dass er heute bei uns ist. Er ist nicht nur Leiter des Instituts International Business am IMC Krems, er ist auch derjenige, der mich selbst zum Club Tourismus gebracht hat, der vor mir hier auf der Bühne gestanden ist, und ich freue mich sehr, dass er jetzt die Podiumsdiskussion leiten wird. Herzlich willkommen, Christian.
Ja, herzlichen Dank und schönen guten Abend zu einer späteren Stunde. Kann man mich hören? Ja, ich denke schon. Gut. Danke. Da fehlen noch ein paar Folien, glaube ich.
Ich wollte gerade noch sagen, du bist mir jetzt fast ein bisschen ins Wort gefallen, lieber Christian. Wir haben uns nämlich dazu entschieden, weil das Auditorium natürlich sowieso heute schon Zweisprachigkeit gewohnt war, dass wir das Podium auf Englisch halten werden. Alle Teilnehmer des Podiums waren damit jetzt auch einverstanden, und ich darf sehr gerne zu mir bitten. Jetzt wird in der Sprache geswitcht. Please come to us again, Dr. Letkin. We know you from the beginning of this day. Also Abu Mususa, again on the stage. Professor Dr. Duke, please come back. Doris Walz is staying here, and also Christina Feuchthuber will complete this podium. Thanks, and the word is yours, Christina.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I hope that everyone still has some energy before we move to the final part.
Ein letztes Wort noch, es tut uns leid, dass jetzt nicht alle Bilder hinten stimmen, darum werde ich das jetzt einfach auf Black schalten oder wegschalten.
Black auf weg.
So.
Okay, thank you very much. We are running a little bit late in time, and therefore I suggest that we finish at 7:30 sharp, if this is okay for you. Okay? And first I want to congratulate Marco, the president, and the entire Club Tourism Board to this really exciting event. It's really a great show, so to say, tonight. We had a really fantastic presentation from very inspiring speakers, and the topic, the tourism work, key environment, so to say, and in investigating this topic from 5 different continents is really, really amazing. Yeah? What is so special about the jobs in tourism is not only, as we've heard before, that the jobs mean security to the people, and that they mean the self-esteem, that they also mean that we earn the money, that we can buy the things that we want to have in our lives. But what is so special about the great place to work, namely tourism, is that we also make people happy with our jobs. Yeah? We help them to grow, we help them to have a good time when they come to our destination or when they come to our hotels. And this is really the amazing thing about working in tourism. And I myself have now worked for the past 20 years in the tourism industry, and I cannot imagine another industry which is so exciting. Yeah? And I want to have really a nice conversation with you, and later also, of course, we'll open the floor to the audience for some questions. I just want to wrap up very briefly what was said before. And starting with Adele, you mentioned that the employees create a touristic experience together with the guests, so this co-creation is here really an important aspect, and you also provided us with the 6 successful factors for a destination development, including the work-life balance that we've heard in various presentations, also from you before, the well-being, so to say, in the job environment. Then Mr. Leimer from Statistik Austria, you mentioned also that we can see this depopulation from the rural areas more to the urban areas, and this is another question that we can discuss later, what this means for tourism in the future, whether the future tourism will happen mainly in urban areas, or whether it means that also less qualified people will then work maybe in the rural areas if everyone moves to the countries. And also what is demographic and also the geographic changes mean to tourism if the African population is growing so much. What I found also very interesting was these insights into the different continents from, as Abu said, being victims actually of, the employees are victims, so to say, very often, and they need the social stability to, what we also heard in the presentation about China, the 996 rule, and these differences, you said, Martin, with the differences between these collectivistic and also these individualistic approaches. What I missed a little bit in the presentations before was most of you focused on the status quo and where we want to go in the future. But we celebrate tonight 35 years of club tourism and how the world has changed in the past 35 years. So what has actually changed in the 35 years from the employee's point of view and maybe also from the employer's point of view? What is different? Yeah, we've heard from the student from Bergheidengasse about robots take over, like in the Henna Hotel in Japan, digitalization. Let me start with Channel C maybe. What has changed? We have also some microphones here. What do you think has changed?
Yeah, I think there is much more digitalization, but we are not focused on that because our presentation, the people should stay in focus and not the digitalization.
Yeah, the human touch in tourism. Yeah. Is the world so much different apart from the technological advancements?
Having a look on this side, I would say 30 years ago the market, the employment market was different to this, what we experience now. The awareness of culture aspects as an employer, this wasn't, employee experience, this was no theme at all. Because people should be happy to have a job. Yeah? And there was the thinking, people working for me, they cost the money, and guests, they are coming, they bring the money. So this is a different approach that we experience now.
Okay, so if the client, the employees are happy, the clients or the guests will be happy as well.
Yeah, this is the
empathic.
approach. This is the. No, it's not in each hotel or in each destination that you find this spirit, of course. Otherwise, they wouldn't have this trouble to find the people. Yeah? If it's so attractive to work in the tourism, then we don't have to discuss about a lack of people working there.
Okay.
So this is where we go. I believe it's a target to come there. This spirit in the brains of owners of hotels.
Okay.
I mean, I think about a discussion I had a couple of months ago in Tyrone, and it was amazing. Let me say it like that.
Okay, but apparently, as you say, it's not always so great to work in the tourism industry. It's not always that attractive. What are reasons for that, do you think? Or maybe I'll hand over to Adele. You have looked at this also from an academic point of view.
I think tourism and hospitality has always suffered from a lot of the negative images, and some of them are very real. You know, it is hard work. Any customer-facing job is difficult and stressful. Contracts are not always great. There's certainly a lot of jobs that are not attractive, but there are also jobs that are good. And I think what I try to tell my students that is, you know, the industry is interesting because it doesn't really discern at the entry level, regardless of your education. Often you end up doing the same job as somebody not as well qualified as you, but the difference is then later on what happens in your career trajectory. And nobody likes to hear that. You know, they all think that if they've done wonderful, marvellous things, they'll start higher up in the industry. We still have this tradition of that not necessarily being the case. People work their way up. But I think it's interesting when we talk about what's changed, and a lot has changed, but a lot of things have stayed the same. Tourists still want good holidays and they still want a good time. People have always wanted to be treated fairly at work. I think what has changed is now that dialogue is more open and apparent, and both sides can see it to the advantage. And I think your presentation, you know, it really is, if everybody's happy, it's so much better for companies, organisations, people, and ethically and morally. So there is change, but fundamentally we're all the same. You know, we want a good time and we want to be treated well, and that doesn't seem to be very complex to me.
Okay, Martin, please.
You invited me to think about 35 years ago. So when I think in the 90s of the last century, so long before your time and stuff, so it was really hard to travel. It was not this high of mobility you find everywhere. So the people are traveling like they are taking a taxi, something like this. In my time, when I started to travel, because I was responsible for total Latin America, and I was traveling, it was really only a few people on the business class traveling. Now, it's not some special to drive or to fly in business anymore. So you have then the first class and the upper class, and so this is really something which is improving. The second point is, so when I'm thinking about the last years in Colombia, it was always war. Also, we had a very hard and critical phase. We had a high risk, insecurity, and also making business and so on. This changed also. This is something which becomes more calm. So we can go into countries, we can look, we can do some business there and talk to people. Before, I had to ask where I can go, where I have to be careful, and so this also changed. And also the Generation Z, so we have this work-life balance as we are familiar with, so the Generation Y or Generation X, so we are thinking about work-life balance. They are thinking about work-life separation. And now it's a new boom, it's coming to work-life integration. So we have these phases, we have to deal with it. So this is something I think we have to consider.
Okay, can I just hook up here, because you also in your presentation said before that the Colombians think that in Europe we just have money, that the streets are plastered with banknotes, yeah. And also you said, and you showed us also the incomes in Uganda, which are normally very low, as I could see, below $100 per month. On the other hand, we say we have to please the tourists, we have to make the tourists happy, yeah. How can you make tourists happy if you're an employee who is not happy because you have not really a stable working condition, you lack security, and you don't earn enough money? And you can see the rich Europeans coming to Africa, spending their money there. How does this work in your country in terms of education, making people aware of that? It is ways.
So I think first to the previous question, I wasn't there 30 years ago. I wasn't, I didn't know what was happening, but certainly what I see more now is actually a lot of rebellion from younger people who are coming into work, right? They don't want to work, on the terms that my parents used to work. I don't want to work on those terms, right? It's sort of like I want it all. I want to be free, yet I want to, to be able to earn, a living. And so a lot of employees are left in a dilemma, and we are talking about a lot of millennials are very stubborn, don't understand the frame, within which they work. I don't know what the answer is to that and what employees have to do, but certainly the bigger workforce now is demanding new terms, new templates, to work with, and that has changed over the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. What work is, what a working condition is. The thing about where I come from is that, again, incomes are relative. So one of the things that we have to struggle with every day back at home is this thing that we call the race to the bottom. Like I said, because people haven't been in work for a long time, they tend to want to do a job for any amount of money, right? And actually we find ourselves that we have to protect against that. And so I think employers have to basically just be ethical. It's just an issue of being ethical, and organizations like Great Places to Work, this is their relevance. Because what we know is that as long as we live into market forces, employers will continue to pay less, because as long as it's what we need to do for work for less. So that's why in future versions our plan is to basically set the standard and say for this kind of work in the hospitality industry, someone needs to earn $10 a day, and basically that's the standard. So for us, it's really to challenge employers, and tell them you have to be ethical about this. You have to pay people, a good amount of money, so that they are committed to the work. But I mean, it's not always just about money. It's also about the working conditions.
Yeah. Being respectful and also
millennials, and it's not just about the money. it's, you know, like you said, it's really about the work conditions.
Okay. Okay. Before we did not have so much time really and chances to ask questions to the speakers. I want to give the audience also the chance to ask questions. There is one question, Kerstin. We have a microphone here. Maybe Marco, you can also do a little bit of exercises. Yeah, Kerstin.
Thank you. I have two inputs that I would like to give into the discussion. One is, we have heard today we may close our eyes and imagine a destination empty and then fill it with people who work there. What I miss very much in this image is that no destination is a place without people. So we have a lot of people already living there, and these people are important. Not only do we work with the customers and with the tourists, we also work with the people who already live in the destinations, and I think this is one of the most important points that we should consider also in the future, because a lot of us are moving. We have heard that from the statistics. These hidden places do not exist any longer. We only have this planet. And I do think that destination planning cannot be done in a way that we imagine the place is empty before tourists or businesses come. And the second point was to doing business in tourism in Asia. I have come across recently a very interesting development and trend, which is Buddhist economy. And I think a lot of values in the workplace in Asia are changing now, turning towards the old values people have. They find a lot of innovation also in old values and old ways of thinking, and this might also be something that we can consider for the next 35 years, going back to some old traditional values and rethink them in our context.
Thank you, Kerstin. Does anyone want to comment on this? Yeah, you raised two very important issues. First, finding empty destinations and empty places will be certainly getting more and more challenging in the future if we have 11 billion people on our Earth in about 2050. And changes in terms of how we do business. Yeah, we can learn also from, as we said before, the insights from other industry. Maybe also sometimes being more decent, putting the human being in the forefront and not so much the money, as we do very often in the European countries. Yeah. For us, it's always earning good money, even more money than others. Okay, other questions, please.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay, I have two questions. The first, just for clarification to Abu Moussousa and Dr. Leimer. I understand, Abu Moussousa, when you were referring to data, statistics in Africa, you were referring to sub-Saharan Africa. And I suppose, Dr. Leimer, you were referring to the total continent of Africa. Okay? It's answered? Yes. Good. Just for clarification. Dr. Delkin, you were speaking of factors like well-being. That on the job people in tourism should feel well. I was working most of my life, a good part of my life, I would say, in the tourism sector. And I'm increasingly under stress situations and not feeling as well anymore as I used to, because people are continuously saying now, and even some of my very good friends, you are really part of one of our biggest problems and not of any solution, because you defend tourism, and tourism means mobility, and mobility means travel, and travel is very bad. You just have the Friday for future, a future for Friday, or not Friday for future, and move and so on. And I really would like to have a good answer to this question. Do you have one for me, Dr. Delkin? Thank you.
I'm not sure what the question is.
The question is
tourism good or bad?
Ask me, okay, I should not feel well being in the tourism sector because I'm part of this huge problem and I'm not part of any solution to this climate changes, this movement, which is now very, very aggressive, quite aggressive, mechanic and so on. And I'm part of it, right? So I'm the bad person. And I would like to have a good answer when I checked for my friends, they would say, okay, that's it, but have a good chance, I don't have one.
Yeah, I think, I mean, tourism is, I think if you like what you do and what you enjoy, tourism is the best job in the world. I think for many of us, work becomes more stressful and more difficult, and I think if I think of my education sector, research sector, we have the same thing. Tourism, like any other job, has problems and caveats and things that are good about it. But in terms of well-being in employment, I think it's down to what the employer is able to do for you. So if you're talking about whether you should feel well working in tourism, I think that depends entirely on where you work, who you work for, what opportunities you have, and those kind of things. If you're talking about defending a tourism job, I would find that a lot easier to defend than being a politician right now.
At least in Britain.
Exactly. So, no, I mean, there is no answer. But I think in terms of well-being, it's looking after people in the workforce, whatever that is. And tourism seems to be particularly important because it is our people that give us the unique aspect of that industry. So I'm sure that's not a definite answer.
If I can add to Mr. Raffing's statement, also what Kerstin meant before with this sort of maybe over-tourism, we have to think about the people living in the destination, so we cannot simply say this is a destination and we develop it according to our interests in order to increase tourism numbers ever and more, yeah. And also here, certainly with the transportation means, there are alternative transportation means, yeah. And Friday for Future movement has shown that there is an awareness nowadays for the climate change, for the environmental pollution. And yes, I think in some tourists and some people's head, this is already the message. In others, it's not. And sometimes, especially in business traveling, maybe sometimes you cannot even avoid to travel somewhere. Yeah, so, but you're absolutely right. Sometimes the negative image, so to say, is also connected with the impact tourism has on the environment and also on the destination.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And what I would say is, and it relates actually to the comment back there, is in all the times I've been working in research and tourism planning, the HR issue always is right down at the bottom. It's one of the things that comes last. So we talk about all the other infrastructure and all the other development, and we talk about the people right down at the bottom as last. And I think that needs to change. And certainly over-tourism, I have a slight problem with it because it's a luxury of certain destinations. Not everywhere is experiencing over-tourism, and there are some people that want significantly more, and some societies that are heavily dependent on it. So it's absolutely true, and as a tourist myself, I'm now finding myself thinking, oh, thank God I used to travel 30 years ago when no one else came. But that's a luxury position, and it's not applicable everywhere.
Okay. Other answers or other questions? The audience? Carl,
yes,
please.
hello, Carl. Rainer. First of all, I want to thank you very good for this great event and the good presentations. And then two questions. One is about the education. You have this, we're looking a lot for people who want to work in this sector, but I think I know that in Austria we educate a lot of people, but I heard also today that most of them left the sector. That's what to do, especially the good example of Staudacher. I know that a lot of hotels looking for people who can find some. And the second question maybe was a little bit to Peter Leimer. He told us a lot of figures and data about the tourism, but I ask you also this question again and again. When we can think we have also good data about sustainability, maybe how happy the people in tourism, not only how many overnight stays, and how sustainable this will be in the future, how to measure it.
So similar to Bhutan, the Gross National Happiness Index. Who wants to answer? Or
I can answer. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yes, there are a lot of initiatives going on concerning measuring sustainability of tourism. I'm involved in one in the UNWTO. It's a UNWTO project in this field, And of course, it's not. I have to say, it's not an easy task. But it never was an easy task because we discussed this also 20 years ago. So then always the overnights are coming back. But in this case, I think we have to look to other indicators, and there are possibilities because also the world is changing now, also concerning data availability and so on. So I think, I am optimistic.
Okay. Well, the discussion circles around ethical issues at the moment, and Martin, you also mentioned in your presentation before that education, or was it Adele also, should focus more on ethics and corporate social responsibility. I can say that in our university we have included these subjects already in the curricula. But what should we tell the young people like Christina? Yeah? If they start working in the tourism industry, what means ethical awareness for these people, if they work in the tourism industry? But because we always talk about ethical issues and behaving morally well, but what does it mean concretely?
We have also in our educational program ethic and all these points of corporate social responsibility, CSR and all the things, but these are not focused on tourism because we are a master degree program for international marketing management, so we are covering all branches, all industries. It's not only focused on one. So it's not easy for me to answer it to you, Christina, but for me it's something we have also to think about. What is really the goal of the young people and what want they to reach? The vision is something we have to think about, because the power lies then in the next generations, and we are only guiding them through a few parts through this vision. But the communication has to be enhanced a little bit. There's no really communication between the generations, focusing on a new vision from this generation. We're always trying to give them something and not to listen and to take something to go with them together. So this is something we are trying to do in projects on the applied science university.
But it's sort of something that the companies or the destinations or the employers should do, that they focus more on these ethical issues and to make them more aware to the employees, because in education, higher education, we do it. And is it also integrated in the businesses, in the organizations? Do you have, for instance, an ethical codex or something like that, or an ethical policy in your written down ethical policy in the hotel? Yeah.
Is it important for you to work in an ethical company?
Business.
Yes, I think it's what's important.
What's your picture of the future?
Let's go on.
So that's my next question anyway.
Yes, I think in the tourism sector there are so many possibilities, and there are so many opportunities, and you have can go from upstairs to downstairs, and it's never boring. So it's every day.
It's a global issue.
Yeah.
We mentioned already the future, looking into the future. We've now looked back, so to say, 35 years of changes in the working environments, looked into the different paces also that we can see on different continents, that Africa to a certain extent is lagging behind, whereas European countries, more developed countries are heading away, so to say. If we talk about the future, what will be the, let's say, the key skills and the key traits that employees in the tourism industry, or the employers also, if we talk about this war for talents, should have in the, let's say, next 15 years? What do you think, how will the working world change in the next 15 years until 2035, 2050 maybe? Let's start with Africa maybe, because you mentioned before that there's a lot of things to do in your country, in your countries maybe, also in your continent.
I think, touching on the ethical question, I think for Africa, it still is a very difficult conversation to have. I do see that the conversations around ethics tend to get complicated based on the level of wealth and poverty, you know, so it becomes very unclear, and I see this back at home in the continent. for someone, to basically have this ethical question and have a good ethical conversation, especially in countries, where the leadership is corrupt, for example. So that's going to be a difficult conversation to have. But actually, going forward, this is going to be the number one issue for Africa. Actually, can we get the right leadership in place? So we need to, young people to get, beyond the talent of being able to deliver high quality of work. The issue will continue to be: can you be that ethical leader? Can we develop those standards? Can we build systems? So we actually need systems thinkers going forward who will basically shift industries, shift policies away from relying on individuals to relying on a system, that outlasts everyone. Right? So I think that's going to be possibly the most important thing going forward for the African continent. The issue of ethics and issue of ethical leadership and the issue of systems thinking, to build lasting solutions.
One sentence to your comment. If we have that Maslow pyramid, you cannot discuss with people who are not satisfied on the basic, and we are really on the top and trying to say something to them. So I totally agree with you. So we have to harmonize. On your second question, in 25 or 30 years for Colombia, so it was something very special for me to see young people really hungry, really doing their university degree programs in parallel with 2 or 3 jobs, paying their education in private universities, in the same time trying to get a very good experience in one or another job, and trying to perform in this way. This is totally different as I see it here in Austria. In Austria, the people are studying, and then if you ask them to do something in parallel, so you receive different answers. So it's not so easy. I have 4 children, and so only one of my children is working and studying at the same time. All others are only studying. And so it's totally different, and there are 2, 3 jobs in parallel. So it's really, it's something like they are hungry. They are really moving forward. And when they get there, they will travel. They will do all we did, and they will, like China. So we will see them worldwide.
But it sounds to me a little bit contradictory, because on the one hand, we have heard this term very often, the work-life balance and the work-life integration. On the other hand, with this discussion in Austria with the 12 hours working days, Mr. Grabner before mentioned the 996 rule in Asia, 997 even sometimes. Yeah. So the employers also expect the employees to work hard, to represent the companies. What are there any approaches how we can, so to say, make the work-life integration more attractive also in the businesses? Yeah? You've mentioned a few examples like this. These boxes, if people are ill, you give them massage vouchers and other things. Yeah? But is this enough, or what should change in the future in order to make employers more attractive, even more attractive to employees?
I think the metrics, that we measure success on needs to change. Right?
The metrics need to change.
Yeah, the metrics need to change, and I think a lot of CEOs of Fortune 500 companies are trying to change their thinking around the metrics. Is it really just about profit, or is it actually the company being a contributor, to society, right? And if we shift that thinking, then I think our workplaces will become more attractive to people. Right? If we think about what impact we're having, as we make money, what impact we're having on the community, what footprint we're leaving. And this is not necessarily negative that we've been polluting, but more positive, really a more positive footprint, wherever we go. Can we share out, on success, increasingly. And with these new, models that are coming in, that, are heavily relying on remote workers, and companies increasingly sharing, all that they would have taken. Instead of owning, they basically give people the freedom. Now, those business models also have questions, but certainly we need to rethink what our matrices are and start thinking about, our impact on the community, because that's what, the people who work for us are really concerned about.
Okay.
Yeah, and just in terms of when you asked a question about future skills, I think some things will stay the same, but certainly for me, I think future skills are in digital marketing. We actually need people who understand when you say I've got 1 million Facebook likes, what that means. We need people who understand big data. We need people who understand algorithms and how they work. And those skills I see as lacking at the moment, so they will be, I'm sure, more and more to the future. And then actually related, and this is in terms of work-life balance. You know, we have a problem broader than employment. It might not be a problem, and that's digital addiction. And while we're all addicted to looking at our phones and being on the move and having everything in our pocket accessible all the time, then employers will capitalise on it. And ultimately it comes down to a personal choice, I think. But I think that's a much broader picture that is impacting on working life simply because we are addicted to our technology. That's a personal view.
I think another skill which is really essential in the future is still communication. If you look at Gen Z, that people who communicate a lot via digital media with short sentences, where the empathy is very often lacking. Actually, we use emoticons in order to express our emotions. On the other hand, the personal encounter with the guests in the hotel, at the reception, in the destination is still very important. So I think even more important probably in the future than nowadays. I think we must not neglect communication skills also.
Yeah, I mean, just to say, I work with a group of computer scientists at the moment, and they keep telling me that they won't need me. They keep telling me it's all robotics and it's AI, and basically I shouldn't worry about nobody wanting to work.
Should Dimitri have said this?
Yeah, so, I don't think we're that far down the line, but there's more available than we currently know around, and it's just waiting for it to be affordable. So it is a serious challenge, I think.
I should say, though, ironically, that the more technology advances, the deeper the need for human connection, right? And so that can never be replaced. And so going back to the idea of, as you change your matrix, you start realizing that what makes your company successful is not having your people at work, 7 days a week, 9 to 5. It's really about having them out there representing the company, in community things. And I think one of the companies I was reading with, Microsoft, one of the big companies tried out a 4-day work week. And they say that their productivity jumped 40%, right? So you start seeing that, it's not really how much time people spend on the job in front of a computer, but how much time they spend interacting with other people that make them ironically more productive at work.
Yeah. In tourism, it may be a bit different. If you need a cook in the kitchen, if you need a chef in the kitchen, then you can't say you come only 4 days and the other 3 days the guests cook themselves. Who knows? Maybe it's a new product. Okay, we have about 3 minutes left. Can I ask the audience again if there are any questions? Silvia?
In Austria, we are most of in the cases not only looking for a cook or a waitress. Most of the business are looking for an Austrian cook and an Austrian waitress. And asking them, they answer, it's because the guest experience an Austrian cook and an Austrian waitress. My first question is this, how do they handle this in other countries, in other continents? Is it the same? The second question is, does regions really need regional people working there? Or can we also bring people from other countries here? What are your experiences?
Well, first, in relation to Mr. Lemmer's presentation, if in the future we have a really incredible growth rate of African population, maybe we will have more African cooks and chefs in the future. Maybe also, or employees in tourism in general.
I think my experience is that what I have seen back in Africa is that people don't necessarily, when they come to Africa, they're not only expecting to have an African experience. For example, in cuisine, right? And so that's why you see, when you go to Africa, you find all sorts of cuisine. I found schnitzel in Africa, for example. It doesn't taste as good, but I found it there. I was surprised, right? So I think the world is becoming more and more global, right? And it's less isolated that one geography gives one particular experience. People actually expect different experiences. I don't need to fly to Asia to have Asian cuisine, for example. So I think there'll continue to be, this melting pot of worlds. But some people prefer a specific person from a specific place, but that's changing. We have a lot of Indians who are in Chinese restaurants, for example, in Africa. So I think it'll continue to be a process.
What was your experience in Colombia?
It depends how different the culture is. So if you bring people from outside into a certain region and the culture is a clash, it's something totally different, it's not easy for them to work there. And also for the people living or being in the tourism there, they don't accept this cultural difference. So it also needs a little bit of training, a little bit of moving this factor also into the right direction. This is something we expect in Colombia, because there are hotels where the people are spending for one night the same amount that the people working there earn in 1 month. And so the people are looking at these very rich persons or people coming from Europe, so they have a lot of money. So this is an experience. If you put there another person from another region with a higher level of economy, so it's not easy to handle it.
Other questions? No? Then I want to get a statement from every one of you, a last statement. So what is your wish to the future? So let's say, how do you want the future employers to be, so to say, in order to fulfill all the things that we just discussed here, to be trustful, to be respectful, to be ethical? What should employers do in the future? What is your wish to the future?
The vision.
Already
it's one sentence. Okay, the vision is check your attitude. Yeah, look in your mirror. What do you see there? Do you see a person that is open for the future, that's interested in what is coming, interested in the people coming into the company, in the organization? Or do you see a person who is afraid? And then you have to deal with yourself. So self-reflection is for me one of the main things that people have to do, and not just employers, but also employees and every person, because the world is changing immense rapid, and we don't know what next year will be, and we don't know what will be in 10 years. How many hours will we work? Because all the other work will be done by robots, technologies or something like that. What is it that people really want to do? What would they do if they don't get paid? This is the question, and then go for that.
Okay, so remain open-minded and be open
That's
for
nice.
changes. Martin?
For me, I think it should be something of higher respect and tolerance. If I go to a country, for example, it doesn't matter as an employee or an employer, I have to integrate myself in this local culture and this local being there. But there are so many people coming from Europe or from other parts, and they expect the same level that they are familiar with in their countries. So they want to eat there the same things, or they want to expect the same things, and not to stay like the people in the region are really living. And I think this would be a nice picture from the future. We as employer or employee, we respect the regional culture and integrate ourselves there.
I think for me, what needs to change is move away from human resources to people teams, right? So just change that phrasing, because one looks at people as tools to an end, but the other one looks at people as people, right? So if we start thinking more as people teams, right, and basically connecting with people and all the complexities they bring to work, and basically being able to extend ourselves and start looking at them as people in the workplace, I think a lot of positive things will come out of that. Yeah, so from HR to people teams.
Okay, people teams. Yeah, thank you.
I think for me it is to be mindful of employee well-being, and I think it really is, and I got this from a talk this morning, it's looking at the small things, and I think you can do small things within an organisation that actually make a real difference. So for me it really is being mindful of ways in which we can make sometimes a difficult job just that little bit better.
So my wish is that also the image of the tourism and hospitality get better, and maybe we focus on the good sides of the tourism and not always on the bad sides, and show also the young generation what is great on tourism and hospitality, and yeah, respect and trust.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you. I hope we will have a similar event in about 10-15 years where we'll discuss the developments then. I always tell my students at the graduation ceremony, do what you love and love what you do, even if you don't love it every day, but tourism is a great place to work. Thank you to all the presenters, thanks to the audience for interesting questions, and enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you.
Vielen Dank für diese abschließende Podiumsdiskussion. Wir brauchen 30 Sekunden zum Umfang. Ich darf vielleicht die Referenten noch alle bitten, vor der Bühne kurz für ein Gruppenfoto Platz zu nehmen, gemeinsam mit Ralf und Peter natürlich, die jetzt bei der Podiumsdiskussion nicht dabei waren. Und wir haben jetzt viel gehört über, bitte schon gerne nach vorne kommen, wir haben viel gehört über Wertschätzung, Dankbarkeit, dass es in einer Arbeitswelt unter unseren 5 Beispielen nicht überall den gleichen Stellenwert hat. Auf der anderen Seite aber natürlich auch die Einstellung zur Arbeit, die auch sehr differenziert ist. Die 5 Beispiele haben uns sicher einen Blick, etwas über den Tellerrand blicken lassen. Und ich hoffe, jeder hier im Saal hat einiges mitnehmen können. Wir sind jetzt zumindest beim ersten Teil am Ende angelangt.